Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for being here at yet another technical steering committee meeting for Werewolf, the 7th of May. I think I've got oh wait, oh, more people have joined and the chime isn't going. Oh no, okay. I've already marked all these people off. Not Man, I must have been on autopilot. Or maybe people are marking themselves on when they join. Anyway, we have a relatively short discussion agenda today, but before we get into it, having already done the first bullet point, is there anything else that needs to be added to this agenda uh, before we get started? All right. Hearing nothing. Uh, so from action items from last time, and I think, yeah, just the action items that are pending are both on Rose and myself about the website documentation. Rose, you provided this document after our last meeting, kind of as a follow-up. I have not adequately reviewed this, but I didn't know if maybe others in the committee have and are able to comment on whether they think this is ready to go into the website or have any comments on it.
Yeah, so the link
Yeah.
to this document is in there um on our notes there, the steering committee notes. You guys can easily access that, or I guess I can just put it in the chat too if you have interest in that.
Yeah, I think.
Mhm.
Oh, go ahead, Rose.
Yeah, just like a little bit more context to, I mean, I know you guys are busy and doing stuff all over the place, but if you want to scroll maybe all the way to the very top, Jonathan,
Okay.
we were originally discussing where we were going to put the recording of this particular meeting on the website. And my original suggestion was to add it, I think, to a previous page, a documentation page or something like that. And then after discussion, it was like, hey, we should have an about page. It should be, an added page. So it would, like, kind of where the arrow is. So there would be news, documents, getting help, and then right there it would say about. And so I just kind of threw together some ideas of what an about page would have on it. Very open. You guys, feel free to edit, comment, yes, no, you are on the right or wrong path, all of that kind of good stuff. I mean, obviously we can continue to iterate on it as time goes by. But would love your guys' suggestions. So I guess one is yes, add an about page, and two, is this what we want to be on the about page? And I think the third thing is, where then would these minutes, right, the link to our YouTube channel that have the recording of this particular meeting, where would that live? So right now, if we're sticking with this, I have it all the way down at the bottom. I believe you can yeah, there's the
Yeah, I think we need a governance section in here, and it can still be in the about page. But then I would say we have a technical steering committee meeting. We meet on the first and third Wednesday of the month, and you can see videos from that on this YouTube channel. And if you want to join, get in touch with us on Slack, that kind of thing.
Okay, awesome. So a little bit more detail, like an actual little paragraph that kind of explains
Yeah,
this meeting. Okay, yep,
yep.
we can add that.
That's what I say.
Mhm.
Any uh any other thoughts or feedback on that? Otherwise, I think Rose, it's you and me just need to or really I think the con well you add the section there for a TSC meeting or governance probably. And then I'll just need to do it. But any other thoughts or feedback or comments or concerns from the committee or otherwise? Welcome, Jeremy. I will repeat so that you hear since you just
There we
came
go.
in.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great.
We're reviewing this proposal for adding an about page to the website, which will include information about the project, but then not shown here, but I have suggested it would include a section on governance where we would describe this meeting and then have explicit links to the videos that we're recording for it and information about how to join this meeting if you are so inclined.
Okay.
But any concerns or comments if you've had a chance to review this in the past or should Rose and I just plan to do this.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay, great. Um, all right. We will plan on that then.
Are you just posting a doc or are you gonna publish it as HTML directly
Oh
readable?
yeah, it'll be an about section on the page. The
Okay.
stock is just here as a prototype. So there will be an about page, and then that will have contents for the contents as represented here, including an
Okay.
additional section for this meeting explicitly. And governance is what I've suggested calling it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. So from that, we already heard a little bit, but Rose, since Jeremy has just joined us, perhaps just give a summary again of that we have a perk BOF accepted. I will be there. Rose, I think you will be there. I forget everyone who was talking about being there. We have a document for it. Let me find it.
Yeah, Jeremy. So it was awesome to kind of go through the whole process of submitting, and then you guys, helping us and iterating on what to say in the submission, and then you send it through and you kind of hope you assume it'll be all right. And we got some feedback back. So there was 3 people that responded, and they were all just very enthusiastic and grateful for the work that's being done. There was a suggestion to add some consideration for IPv6, and then also some adjusting the time frame and allowing more time for discussion. So it was just very exciting to hear these 3 different people say, this is a very important project. It's coming a long way. There's lots of things that are doing, and this is going to be valuable at our conference.
Cool. And I remember I can't even remember. I asked the same question at the Open HPC meeting, trying to remember when the deadline for supercomputing is. Yeah, supercomputing is more fun. It's got to be very supercomputing. Excuse me. The supercomputing, the BOF entry needs to be very non-commercial. That tends to get thrown out pretty fast. So the more you can, especially with that one, the more you can make it look like a very large growing community that has really no relationships with any corporate entities, that the more likely you're probably going to get it in.
That is good to
And
know.
I think our BOF that we submitted for perk is already pretty tilted that way.
Okay,
But
good.
yeah. We mentioned CIQ and SUSE as sponsors of the project, but we've tried to
Oh
show it
yeah,
as
yeah.
broad support from lots of things.
The biggest difference I would say is, as far as I know, the SC is a lot more competition for
Yeah.
slots. I'm only saying because Warewulf and OpenHPC will be competing for the same place.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe the right thing is
Yeah.
for us to just collaborate on the OpenHPC one, but I don't think it hurts to put those in there.
No, the really bad part is because of the way they seem to organize these. If we were both to get it, they would put them in the same time slot.
Right. All right. So Rose, my question to you, we obviously have a little bit of we have some feedback to address whether we take it on board or not. I think that it's broadly good feedback. So the schedule right now was proposed as 20 minutes of like an overview of features in 4.6, 20 minutes of a presentation from someone in the user community, and 20 minutes for this. I think the recommendation has been to reduce this to 10 and bring this to 30. Um, how do we feel about that? Do we want to do that or split the difference or ignore it? Maybe as a first question.
I think, Tim, if you are available to share your experience, I think you have more experience at this particular conference, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I would tend to go with just more discussion. Too many times BOFs end up being 5 small presentations with 5 minutes in the end, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we ran out of time. We can't have any discussions," even though a lot of people come to BOFs for the explicit reason of having discussions. So.
10 minutes feels short to me. I wonder if maybe we should do both of these down to 15, and then that would still leave this one for 30.
I like it. I mean, I imagine that, part of the discussion is questions, and that's going to then go into, being able to kind of present, more of the things, the ideas that you wanted to present, but like specific to that question, that person's concern.
So my next question then is, Rose, do we have, I forget now, do we have a specific person or site already selected for this user community presentation? Or is that we were hoping to solicit someone and we had a fallback if not?
Yeah, I think we were just really focused on, can we do this?
Okay.
Can we get this going? So yeah, I don't remember having anyone in particular, but I
Okay.
imagine it's one of you guys.
Well, can we say then, as a next action, can you be soliciting such thing or taking recommendations from this committee or otherwise? Doesn't have to be right now in this meeting, but can you figure out who this is going to be and confirm
Oh.
that they'll be at Perk and willing to talk and such things? Or we can just, pull someone out of the crowd and put them on the spot. I'm going to put that as an action item up here.
Would it be weird to just kind of, post a little something in the community Slack and saying, hey, anyone going to Perk and want to be part of the BOF, let me know?
I don't have a problem with that, but I am eager for thoughts and recommendations from others.
Uh, yeah, I was gonna say, that is a good question because we should, again, as long as they're not at the same time, definitely bring it up in the open HPC meeting because there's usually quite a few folks that go to Perk.
Oh, I see. I wonder if they have a BOF going at Perk as well.
We should
Okay.
have a BOF at Perk. I can't remember. I think we do. I can go look it up in the minutes, but there's usually quite a few people from on the open HPC side that go to Perk. Definitely Chris is always there.
Is Chris Short, you mean? Are you talking about? Or not Short. No, what's his name? I'm thinking of someone at CIQ.
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about though.
and
Yeah.
that's terrible. I should know this right off the top of my head.
Okay, we're gonna
But
put
I'm
Tim.
terrible with names.
Did you say Tim?
Christopher Sims.
Sims, there we
Yeah.
go. Yes, that's right. Thank you. And then I feel like we need when is this? This is in July, right? So we've got some time to plan this out. But Rose, can you be in charge of like making sure that the people that are going to be there are ready to go? We know what we're all doing and responsible for and who's prepared for what and such.
Cool. Yep.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for doing that, taking it on, getting our proposal in, and good news that it's been accepted. Any other comments on this from anyone else in the meeting? All right. The next thing I have on here, just to follow up from that, is that we have been planning on, like Jeremy said, an SC25 buff. Rose, has there been any motion on that, or do you have a draft proposal that we can be looking at soon for this?
I do not, but I can certainly get that ASAP.
Okay. All right. I will just put that on action items as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, we do actually have something going, but it does need some attention.
Okay.
Yeah, the SC2, it's basically just the rules.
Right.
I took the rules from the site and put them on a paper. So I'll
it might actually be worth proactively reaching out to the Open HPC group and see if they would want to collaborate on a buff rather than split it. And if they think that that would make it more compelling. And if we could, I could see that actually being a better thing. We'll get a better audience, a more, we won't, balkanize each other's audiences. If you're not already in the OpenHPC Slack, we can get you in over there, and maybe you can try and have that
I am
conversation too.
not, so yeah, definitely invite me.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds great to me. Is there any resistance in here? Any reason not to? Gonna be werewolf solo?
No, I don't think that's a problem. I mean, Werewolf is a major part of OpenHPC.
Yeah.
We do support some other builds though. Excuse me, other provisioning systems.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. And I trust that community to give good advice on whether it would be better for us to submit together or submit separately. I don't
I
think we're in
I
competition
I would
there.
love both, but like I said, the SC committee for the longest time I would go to SC and I'm like, oh, there's all these BOPs I want to attend, and they're always all on the
Yeah.
same time. And then I started to kind of understand that they group BOFs by, at least they say they group BOFs by subject. And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
similar subjects all end up in the same time. Yeah,
Um,
that would be my concern. I wouldn't, the people who want to attend Werewolf are very similar to the people who want to attend OpenHPC.
all right. Anything more on an SC25 buff? I know it's early days. Rose, do you happen to remember what the submission deadline for that is?
It's July.
Okay. Yeah, so we've got time.
Yeah.
Um, Real quick news that I remembered because we were talking about it. I don't remember the specific version number. Maybe Tim can fill me in. But Tim announced in the Werewolf Slack that OpenHPC has put out a new release that includes Werewolf 461, which I think is really cool. And really glad to see us kind of having more immediate releases both available and suitable for OpenHPC and then ingested quickly into OpenHPC, which is really cool. But Tim, is there anything more to share about that or anything else going on over at OpenHPC that we should be aware of?
It's OpenHPC 3.3. There are more steps than the two upgrade commands to upgrade the install. Just the way that I wrote the recipe, that it doesn't convert over exactly, so they have to do a couple more steps to get their installation to continue to provision nodes. So
Or
that's
does that, to you, does that represent things that we should try and ingest into Werewolf that would make it simpler, or is it just the way it is and it would be a mistake to pursue it?
I don't know. I think you would go down a really dark rabbit hole trying to guess what the user intended in 4.5 in terms of the overlays and splitting that up into how the overlays and profiles would work in 4.6. I think there's enough of a conceptual difference between the two. It's not just a mechanical import.
Yeah, fair enough.
It was only two or three more steps. What I did personally is I created an overlay for all the changes, and then used that. And then so the upgrade was just to associate that overlay with a new profile, and then stock the profiles for the nodes. So you can see the changes in the release notes. So if you want to take a look at to see if that could be handled a little bit more efficiently with the upgrade. But in some sense, it's too late now, right? Because it's already out. And future upgrades for the 4.6 line should be okay. Should be a lot simpler.
That's awesome. Thank you, one, for working on it and working between the OpenHPC and Werewolf communities to, you know, make us better together.
You,
But
you
also for,
can you can find the release notes on the GitHub page under releases.
okay. But also for keeping us in the loop and announcing it when it happened, because I was not really tracking it.
It kind of came as a surprise to me. It was released a little bit sooner than I had thought, so
Okay,
I was able to spend a little bit of time to get the upgrade testing done before it was released.
cool. Any more discussion or questions or comments on Werewolf and OpenHPC 3.3? I am going to reorder these just because I feel like I'm monologuing too much. Let's talk about this. So, I have been disappointingly absent from community werewolf development for going on 2 months now, and I apologize for that, and I am taking steps to fix it. Christian's been kind of carrying the burden of getting PRs reviewed and merged, and thank you very
Yeah.
much for that.
Hold
It's
on.
been something, it's like,
I fixed even today a bug.
oh, great.
The
Uh,
profile set for networks.
Profile. Oh yeah, yeah, great. I think there's a couple. Someone else was complaining that like you can't set disk stuff on a profile
Yeah,
too.
right.
Right.
That's fixed now.
In my mind, in theory, from what we have discussed, we're late on 462. We had talked about monthly, but I decided not to be too worried about it because Christian's always pushing for bi-monthly anyway. And two, because what I want to do is try and prioritize getting Christian's disk full provisioning into 462.
Good.
So what was that? Sorry, Christian.
That would be great. I just want to say that I like this idea.
So that is where my attention lies when I get back into werewolf development, hopefully today, but definitely this week. That's where my attention is going to be focused. And I appreciate, Christian, you working on documentation and bug fix stuff that's been coming in. And those have been, we've been getting good community response on those. And the bug reports seem to get smaller and smaller and more tangible all the time, which is great. Like someone complains, even the fact that disk set isn't working in profile, I could immediately imagine how we would add a test for it, go find where it was broken, fix it, and it just felt good. So I'm feeling really good about that. But I want to get Christian's PR for disk full provisioning built in my test environment and start evaluating it there. People in the TSC channel may have seen Greg kind of show up in there and express some concern with it. So I have discussed that with Greg, and my path for that is to review that PR, have some comments. Christian will know that I will often make edits and suggest changes and things, and try and get it into a state that I can bring to Greg and advocate for. So that's my current plan there. But I'll be checking with him before a merge happens on that. But I feel pretty good about my ability to get it into a state that everyone's going to be happy with. Not that it's not right now. I just mean like I feel like Christian and I are in enough of a synchronization now on the way it should work that I feel good about it being in that state. So more feedback from me anyway on that, hopefully by our next meeting. But anything else going on that people want to see in a 462 release, imagining that we anticipate it sometime around the end of this month? Christian, how are you feeling about development? You've been fixing bugs and things. Is it going pretty well?
Yeah, it's okay. I just don't have that much time now to go into Werewolf. Um, yeah, what I'm always kind of thinking about is how there's always an upcoming HA high availability, if this is possible, or more kind of how to fix this in a proper way. I think it should be relatively easy because on another project I checked in a bit with Viper, which is also kind of um, it's from the same authors as Cobra, which we use for the command line arguments.
Mm.
And so it should be possible to kind of, yeah, just thinking about this. That would be a
I
next big thing, but
There is a prospective partner on the CIQ side, like a group that is selling werewolf support today. I might even say their name if I remembered. I forget who it is, but we've
mm.
talked with them a few times, and they are building a CoroSync pacemaker environment for
Yeah, but
werewolf today.
that's not a way I want.
Oh,
That
you
I
want to do it
oh,
in the product?
no, not ever. No. The thing is with CoroSync is that it's kind of overblown. And I think you could, if you implement it in a proper way, it would not that big change. And it would, on the other hand, it would solve HA and load balancing at the same time.
Oh, I see. Sure.
Because if
You
you,
want to have like a multi-server active thing that we can support.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's if I find time for this.
Yeah.
I
All right.
wonder if we could do it with HA proxy.
So I was gonna say, so you want to build something that's, I'm trying to think like my Proxmox systems where basically everything can be running, any of the systems can be responsive to provisioning.
The thing is that we don't have, we always have to see we don't have that much information which is inside the system.
Right.
And also the whole thing is relatively static all the time. You have to think for most of the HA things, it's that systems have to react for changes and things like that. But if you think properly about it, the only thing we change is if you send a www control command. So at that time, you can always lock the database, because if there are more than one system administrators on the system, it's kind of, but that's not nothing that goes in a minute thing, and you do not run that often www control commands. And if a node is discovered, that's the other one. For all the other things, you could be completely, the database is kind of static.
It's just stateless. Yeah.
Well, we wanted to
It's really
say that was
stateless,
actually
yeah.
one of the big deals, was getting rid of the database from Werewolf 3.
Right.
But I was thinking, because I'm looking at this as what I know, which was, and I use Proxmox a lot, and that is, you're talking about multi-node, shared data, but that's, Etsy PVE is just synchronized constantly among all the nodes.
Yeah.
And they've got a whole election system to decide who's actually.
Yeah, but for that you could use something like etcd, or how it's, I don't know how it's really pronounced.
Yeah. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
But I'm saying, so it's basically you wanted something very similar. It's just gonna be a directory. The Werewolf directory is gonna be synchronized, so they're basically shared.
Yeah. That and probably like Varlib Werewolf.
yeah, but then you would just have to have an entry which tells you which is the newest one, and then the other kind of all the how would you then call it, the Werewolf servers? Yeah, the Werewolf servers would then sync if from that node where you did the change.
Yeah, I'm fully in support. Like this and stateful provisioning are like the two biggest gaps that we hear from customers all the time. Now, I would say HA is a reasonably distant second from stateful provisioning, but it's not nothing. So I'm with you in terms of
Yeah,
priorities.
the HA, and it's kind of, if you really think what I explained, it's possible because most 99.9% of the time we are just doing always the same. It's really stateless. We don't have any state where we really have to care about. And for carrying the state, we can just use etcd and say, okay, you can just have 5 or 3. You have then at minimal you will have then 3 servers, and at maximum 7, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then shared storage for all the images.
No. Why? You
Keep
don't need
them
to
in
just,
sync, because that's potentially not minor synchronization when we're talking about 18 gig
Yeah.
compute
I'd
node
say
images.
you could do that. Maybe that would be preferred, but it should be able to synchronize them otherwise. Maybe
no,
it's just a
you
bad idea.
synchronize them and not if you have a shared storage, then you
just have a new single
lose
point
the
of failure.
HA. If you just synchronize them, you still have HA, because then a host can fail, and then it would be completely, okay. Then you just, the other one takes over and you are done.
Yeah, that's what
No. The shared storage is optional.
Shared storage is optional, but it makes sense
Oh,
when
yeah.
if I have a lot of very, very large images.
Yeah, that's interesting because I would say you don't have a lot of big images, but I'm not really that's interesting thing because I'm not really using Werewolf, so I don't know what people are really doing with it.
So because what's going through my head right now is, yes, I'm getting provisioning over high bandwidth networks would be really cool, but even with Ethernet, if all of these individual provisioning systems are sharing, let's say, a Lustre network, they're just grabbing the same image and sending it out over the web server.
Hmm.
But I've got multiple web servers that all these different nodes can grab from.
Yes.
That would be that's the two things we would have to add. We would just say, okay, the Werewolf, the nodes.conf is stored in a etcd.
No, this is great
And
because this solves the issue and versus things like torrenting images,
Hmm.
where I just need a lot of each one of my racks just needs a Werewolf node that provisions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome. So the last thing I have on the agenda from here is another like follow on from an issue that Greg brought up in the TSC. I think this whole conversation existed in the TSC channel, but maybe it went to DMs. But Greg, so I'll just type here as an example. So right now we have version 4.6.1. And the way I described this to Greg, oh my, so there we go, is that we have like this thing is like a branded version. This has been like total rewrite territory.
yeah, but for
Like,
example, if you add HA, we could tick that number.
sure, yeah, I'm actually gonna advocate against what I'm describing right now. This is just like a
Right.
baseline.
But we always call it's the epoch. You had the right word.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll say.
Um,
So then the next one, dot six here, this is like features, or no, this one is compatibility. So anything within like a dot six, you should be totally okay upgrading and not worrying about it. And then dot one was non-breaking
Bug fixes. Yeah.
and bug fixes.
which we
So
always have it hasn't always been the case.
right, but we're getting better at it. Like
Right.
that was definitely not the case in 4.4. It was slightly more the case in 4.5, and I'm hopeful that we will be very good at it in 4.6.
Yeah.
So this is where we have been, but people will know that this is not necessarily what people expect. Often people, from like a semantic versioning perspective, expect this number here to be pure bug fixes and no new features, and that if we have features, that happens here. And we can't do this right now because of this epic total rewrite perspective on what the top number means.
Right.
So the point of reference that I gave when I was discussing this with Greg is what happened with Linux kernel version 3, that they were basically in this exact same situation, and then they decided to change it, and they decided to go to something that looks more like semantic versioning, and said, look, Linux 3 is not anything special. It's just we're changing the way we're versioning things. And so they went effectively to um, uh, I mean, Linux doesn't have quite compatibility in the same way, but to
Yeah.
something more like semantic versioning. So, my first question to this committee, to this meeting, maybe anyone beyond the committee too, is what is the appetite to going to a more semantic versioning scheme where we would be more okay with changing this? Basically, the change that we had that went to 4.6 just recently, where we like rewrote a bunch of stuff and changed container to image and things like that, that would in the future have incremented this number. And then where we're implementing or introducing Christian's new diskful provisioning, let's say, that would increment this number. And we only use this number for bug fixes. Without any consideration on the timeline for this, are there support or concern for moving to that at some point?
It's I'm gonna do it. it's tough. I can see it both ways. I get constant complaints about from internal users here at Intel that, you went from 4.6 to 4.7 and everything broke and everything changed, and it's not supposed to. On the other hand, it's still fundamentally the same program. I mean, it's not like a huge change. So if we followed this model, we'd be at like Warewulf, 18 right now, if the non-breaking change rule.
Tim, while I'm typing, what are you thinking?
I'm kind of thinking against, mainly because this would, in some sense, separate development of features and bug fixes. And right now, it's kind of nice that features can come in the meantime. Otherwise, I think we would have like a bug fix phase and then a feature phase, and I think it might slow down the introduction of new features. That or every bug fix gets a rev, that might be worthwhile in some sense. Like if it was like you'd have a lot more releases just for bug fixes and then a development part of it. Does that
And I
make
bring
sense?
up one other thought was when I built the OpenHPC 4 original image, I left Werewolf 4 off because we always called it Werewolf 3 in the past with the actual number attached to it. And I left it off specifically thinking that maybe it was going to follow the proposed standard naming. But the biggest issue is I never call it Werewolf 4 because that implies that Werewolf 3 and Werewolf 4 should be able to be installed simultaneously.
Hmm.
In the Linux world, that's what attaching a number to the name, means in the packaging world.
Often implies it at least.
Yeah. And I don't want people to think that. I mean, it is Werewolf 4. The only other proposal I would have is add another digit. So we'd start shipping with 4 digits, and the first one almost never changes, and people complain about the last 3 digits is the standard. Ignore the first one. That's the epoch, and it doesn't change.
Well, that would then so let me give an example of that real quick. So uh
While you're typing there, the other thing, if you were to do it, I think maybe a formal or formal deprecation of Werewolf 3 at the same time, saying, Werewolf 4 is now ready. We're no longer supporting Werewolf 3. And going forward, it's going to be called Werewolf. And then here's the version number and go from there.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that is the case from a development standpoint, and we are waiting on OpenHPC to deprecate Werewolf 3.
Yeah. By the way, in the notes, I'm saying Werewolf space 4 is fine, but don't write it Werewolf 4 with no
Yeah.
space. Yeah.
Yeah. I usually say this, but
I see that all the time, and I'm like, no, don't write things
yeah,
like that.
I never write this here. But yeah.
We should have had discussion last week where I could have fixed the docs before it got pushed out in OpenHPC 3.
Well, I think OpenHPC is in a slightly unique position just because OpenHPC does in fact distribute 3 and 4, and they can't coexist, but they are both in the same repository. So I think OpenHPC's package is this. Is that
No, the
right?
OpenHPC package, when I originally wrote it, is Werewolf 4 is just called Werewolf. Werewolf
Okay.
3 is Werewolf 3 with the number on it. And I had to put in conflicts to make sure that it wouldn't. But
The other
that way, anytime we move in the future, if we move to 5 or 6, they'll automatically be conflicting.
Yeah.
The other thing I would add is if we're going to move to the semantic versioning and say that Werewolf 3 is deprecated, I would do that after the disk full installs are in, because that's a big holdback for folks in OpenHPC is they want their images written to the disk.
Yeah.
We would say that we're now feature parity of Werewolf 3, and Werewolf 3 is now considered obsolete and everyone should move.
I specifically deferred questions about timeline, but for what it's worth, if I were to propose moving to this kind of versioning, what I had in mind was trying to move to that in 2026
Yeah, I
and
agree.
have like the first release in 2026 be like this, and then just go from there.
I was gonna say we're getting a whole lot of things put in before you officially move to Werewolf 5 and then move forward.
Oh, I like that. And having Werewolf 5, and maybe Tim, this is what you were saying, but have Werewolf 5 be the one that like we start getting really vocal about deprecating Werewolf 3 for because we feel like we've ticked all the boxes and made OpenHPC happy with it.
Yeah, I would tend to go down that route. I would just caution not to hold up the pace of development and the way it's easy to get features in versus bug fixes. So
The thing is,
I
if we can, we are just at 6 right now, so we can tick still like the Linux problem when they moved to 3. They were, I think, at kernel 2, 16, 18, 20. So we still have space there
yeah.
before this gets pending. So I would postpone this question just in a year, and then we can, or to the werewolf BOF and see what the users think about it.
That's a good idea. We could discuss this in
And
maybe
then
the
we
perk
can
buff, but I
vote
think an
there,
SC
and
buff
then
would
we
be a
have a
really good one.
democratic vote or something like this. Sometimes they had it conferences with the stickers where you sticker keep semantic versioning or not, and
Yeah.
because to be honest, it's kind of yeah, it doesn't really matter in anything.
the other thing you could do is ask folks at the same time during the werewolf ball up is what's holding you back from moving from werewolf 3 to werewolf 4 and see what are blocking folks and what's left to be done in werewolf 4 to make it a product that folks are willing to upgrade. Although I imagine a lot of them it'll be tied to specific cluster implementation. So that's at least, 5 to 6 year to 10-year type cycle, depending on the institution and how long they hold onto their metal. Because I personally would not switch a provisioner in the middle of a life cycle of a cluster.
Yeah, then you
I
get in like, does
probably wouldn't
Werewolf
also.
4 support, Red Hat 6?
I don't know that I've ever done that. Does Werewolf 6 has System D, right?
I think so. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It's just it's a bit surprising. There's still a lot of really old Linux versions that people are using.
Yeah.
I'm guessing when 8 goes EOL, that would be a time folks would be looking at Werewolf 4.
Yeah.
And 8's got a while still, right? They just put out 10.
But at the point where folks say that, oh, I'm not going to build a new cluster with
Yeah,
8
right.
because its EOL is after the 4 to 5 to 6 years hardware support. So I think we might be getting close to that soon.
And
Rose,
I'm
did
going
you
to
say
add
4
also.
years or 4 minutes?
Years, yeah. It's like 4.5 years. Yep.
Yeah, so I wouldn't build a cluster now with 8. Well, I wouldn't have done it a long time ago, but 8's a little bit of a risk.
Rose, I've put both of these as potential discussion topics for the perk buff. Although, and maybe we bring it up at the perk buff, but I kind of feel like the versioning question might be better suited for an SC buff, but we can see. We can try one and then the other two. Great. I feel good about that. We've got time between now and the end of the year to be discussing it anyway, but I really like the suggestion of considering doing that and having the Werewolf 5 not be some big rewrite, but the line in the sand where we say, seriously, get off of Werewolf 3. and where we've gotten the product to the point where we feel like there are no objections left. Well, with
Just to
that,
be clear,
that's
it's Werewolf V5, not Werewolf 5.
yeah. Apparently that's a Go thing, but I've just inherited it from the code base. Anything else we need to discuss? All right. Well, thanks all for being here. If there is anything, of course, get in contact on Slack. And otherwise, we will expect to see people in 2 weeks. So our next meeting is scheduled for the 21st. So that is currently whatever currently. That is the same time as our local Rocky Mountain Advanced Computing Consortium conference at CU. I am giving a presentation on Wednesday on that day, but if it's not conflicting, I will plan to still be in this meeting. If I find out that it is conflicting, I might ask someone else to run the meeting, but I'll let people know when I find that out. All right.
Yeah,
Thanks, everyone. Oh,
I won't be in the next meeting.
you will also not be in the next one? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm at a conference.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Ciao.
Yeah.
See y'all.
See you.